Todo's amazing. As stated from Gege, he's supposed to be the Kenpachi of Jujutsu Kaisen. And in terms of that's where the inspiration of his character came. And I think you can see the similarities in terms of the safety you feel when that character appears. A good example is the first school festival, when we had Todo and Yuji's team up, clap and fight against Hanami, and the dynamic was beautiful and it was really done well. But to take it to a step further, I mean his first ever question, he asked what type of girls are you into? And he gave the GOAT answer, a tall girl with a big ass. And listen, he's so real for that. Listen, but jokes aside, I think it was nice to see a character with so much charisma in the story. And in terms of actually having a more simplistic kind of mindset, in terms he wanted to fight strong people. It was very evident in the fact that when we get to the school festival, he was disappointed that he couldn't fight somebody such as Yuta or even Hikari. So in my opinion, he seems as if a person who shows that similarities of someone such as Kenpachi, who was obviously looking to fight strong people all the time. But going back to the safety argument, the way in which we feel safety when Todo's appeared, it can be evident in so many other ways. I talked about the school festival, but one of my favorite moments is in Shibuya when we see the decline of Yuji and him in his worst state. And then Todo comes, drops a 10 out of 10 speech, and then boogie woogies and claps Mahito. Like, bro, he's just the GOAT. It gives us a nice sense of safety. He's such an intriguing character. He isn't somebody who has some overly grand motivation or whatnot, but every time he's on the screen, you pay attention to him and you rate him heavily. I believe if you don't like Todo, you're not good vibes, because how can you not like this guy? Like I said, his whole performance in Shibuya, even though it was very brief, was one of my favorites. And to take it to a step further, you already know that he's rated highly because not only was he one of the students that Gojo talked about in terms of the picture that we saw when he talked about students that could surpass him, even Mekamaru managed to realize his strength, and he said basically, if you're not Todo, don't go to Shibuya to the Kyoto students. So aside from those mid-Kyoto students, and listen, then one day I will be slandering all these Kyoto students, because all of them are mid, I'm not going to lie. The side of the students are doing so well, but Kyoto is lacking. Todo and obviously Mekamaru are single-handedly carrying that faction, and I think Todo has been showcased as just such a great character. But take it to a step further, and now we finally get to see his sensei in Yuki. You can really see where he gets a lot of his character from. In terms of the questioning, in terms of what we learned recently, that's how he got his whole typing from Yuki. And even the scar on his face in which Yuki obviously hit him. And with how we know how strong Yuki is, I'm kind of surprised my guy only got that small of a scar. So it's good to see and showcases the strength that he has. But the reason why we love Todo is he's just great. I don't think there's something that's overly changed in his character, something like he has some grand motivation or ideology that he has to fill. And him with his exaggerated personality really poses a nice contrast because he's actually a very smart individual. First, we saw him 530,000 IQ, but to take it to a step further, he really knows what the job description he is, and he's a very good depiction of a Jujutsu sorcerer. He doesn't forsake his people and has taken mentorship roles and ways to be able to encourage our MC and Yuji. The first instance was that in the obviously school festival. He starts off with the goal is for them to obviously exterminate Yuji, but he decides he wants to do what he wants because he finds intrigue in whatever. You even get the parts where he talks with Megami where he says, listen, your answer was boring so I don't rate you, and he starts to go fight him. Even though he has that foolishness and sense of over-exaggeration, it in tandem with his obviously intelligence, I think is actually done well. Because being able to mentor Yuji was done well, and Yuji at this moment of time was taught how to use Black Flash and being able to use his cursed energy more efficiently from just Todo's guideship. But to take that to a step further, he also told them about the importance of controlling your emotions. In not one case, but in another case when we get to Shibuya. But first I'll start off with the school festival. In the school festival, he talks to them about the fact when Yuji was angry because he thought Megami was a very bad situation after the fight with Hanami. But he told them, yes, anger can help you strengthen yourself, but you have to be composed and be able to not only lose yourself because you end up making the things worse. And this was evident. Straight after we see Yuji first hit his first ever Black Flash. And even if it came from something as exaggerated as having to slap Yuji, it feels as if he knows how to mentor the right person, especially those he vibes with close. And then we get to, like I said, my favorite moments in Shibuya. He had his whole speech about the bells and everything, but to take that to a step further, he went and mentored him to make sure that he doesn't lose himself in the sadness of losing both potentially Nanami and obviously Nobara, who inherit their will, and to be able to push themselves in a stake where that not only Yuji can then fight back against Mahito, but he can begin to become even stronger. And we can see that with the whole picture where we have Mahito, Yuji, and Todo, where it says that they're all exceeded 120% of their potential. It's one of my favorite panels, and I mean, it really encapsulates what Todo is as a character, who's ready to put himself on the line for the people close to him. And even though he has his weird memories thing, which supposedly from what we got from Gege in the interview, this is just Todo being Todo. So it isn't something in terms of the actual thing with Yuji and Choso in particular that we're still expecting to get explored later on in the future. But now Todo and his combat skills, and obviously his technique. His technique in Boogie Woogie is one of my favorite curse techniques. It's hella simple, but it's also really useful. Being able to switch positions with anything, whether that's inanimate objects or the person himself or the person he's teamed up with, it showcases his utility in multitude of his fights. It has Hanami to be able to throw them off, and then to get good ways in which Yuji and both Todo can combo against Hanami. Or whether that was in Shibuya when Mahito at the start couldn't find the inner workings of Boogie Woogie until later on, which showcases how strong and smart Mahito is as a curse, being able to eventually find the inner workings of his technique. But even still, he used it as a bluff in one of my favorite moments. He talks about how the clap is the soul of the applause. I'll put the panel, I don't remember it at the top of my head, but that whole speech where he did, and he obviously claps and then does a fake clap in which Yuji then goes and sends the black flash to end Mahito. It was amazingly done. Himself on the line on multiple occasions really showcases what Todo is all about. I mean, even to take it to a step further, we know that Boogie Woogie from the Goat Lightning, who gave us a nice translation, who indicated to us that similar with Yuki's ability being inspired by Muhammad Ali, Boogie Woogie is inspired by Muhammad Ali as well. It keeps nice with the parallels with him and Yuki, but the reason for this is that Muhammad Ali used to play the piano. The tracks that he played on the piano was called Boogie Woogie. So it fits nicely with the Bumaye with Yuki, and then Todo with his Boogie Woogie inspiration. It feels as if these two characters really fit their persona well, with both being brawler types, and it fits nicely with their inspirations of somebody such as Muhammad Ali. But yeah, I mean, at this current juncture, what could be next for Todo? At this moment in time, we know RCT can't be healed by idle transfiguration, so the likelihood of him getting his arm back is very unlikely. That doesn't mean that he can't do something else in terms of prosthetics, or maybe take inspiration of my guy Mekamaru and become a robot, because we are still unaware of whether he has lost his technique. There's a lot of indication that he has, because obviously Mahito transfigured a certain part of his body, which could indicate that he potentially lost Boogie Woogie, and from his whole talk he said that Boogie Woogie is dead. But I feel there's still a lot of intrigue to see how he could come back in the story. And I mean, he's one of my favorite characters, so I'd like to see what Gege does with his story, especially as he was hinted as potentially one of the students to get to a level that will help Gojo with his ideals. But the likelihood of it is very unlikely at this current juncture, and I think I'm interested to see what would be next for Todo, if there is anything next for Todo in general. I think as if he has a lot to play in terms of just being a person of comfort when the stakes get dramatically worse for our main cast. And in terms of characters like that, there aren't that many, because people such as Gojo was sealed. Even though we have people such as Yuta, Hikari, and etc., their stories are still intertwined with different things, which could indicate that they may not have good outcomes in the end of the story. But him coming back especially, and I need a Todo and Hikari team up, or a Todo and Yuji team up again in the future. Just being him as a presence makes the story more enjoyable, and I'm excited to see potentially his new kind of talk with somebody such as Yuki if they get to see each other again. But what do you think in terms of what would be next for Todo? I am kind of weird. I don't know if he will be able to still use his technique, but it's more unlikely for him to be able to, because like I said, idle transfiguration can't be healed with reverse curse technique. However, there wasn't a complete confirmation apart from when he said that Boogie Woogie is dead, but he made it in the way a sense because he doesn't have his arm. But if he does take inspiration of potentially using, I don't know, a Shikigami like Gurada, or maybe using a prosthetic arm or a robot arm or something to be able to clap again, then there could be potentially that he could get to a next level, and especially as we know, getting close to death ends up putting you in a whole new level. But he's a great character. I think everybody rates Todo, and if you don't rate Todo, you're bad vibes. And thank you guys for watching, and make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe.
Mark is on its way, boy. Why you keep ghosting?